Hi, my name is Sam Johnson and I'm a voice teacher. Today I'm going to be reacting to and analyzing Creeper performing Hiding with the Boys. With boys, not with the boys.
Overtired, overthink, club nights and cheap drinks. Do you ever think of me the way I think about you?
Nice harmonies.
I'm on the brink. I stand up and slowly sink into the pavement.
I like how he did that slowly. He didn't go and slowly or anything. He just kind of said and slowly how he would speak it and let the pitch modulate. Because in our speech, our pitch is modulating all the time if you're expressive. If you're kind of a monotonous person, like I am a lot of the time, it doesn't do as much of it. But with most people, when you let your voice have room to be expressive, it goes up and down in pitch all over the place. And we don't, in our regular speech, chase pitches. Most of the time, we keep our vowels the same as the pitch changes underneath it, which just makes less effort. A lot of times we get used to what something feels like in a certain register and assume that it needs to feel that way throughout all of your voice, and it's just not true. So I loved that vowel choice that he just kept it the same. I can't remember what he said, but it was the same.
Oh, and if I ever die, let someone let you know.
It was all your fault.
It was all your fault instead of it was all your fault. It was all, and that's partly just the accent that she grew up with helping out her singing. Let's all just imitate UK people when we sing, and I think we'll have a lot better singing.
With the boys in your bedroom, hiding the evidence of dying you, under cigarettes and stale perfume. Approaching midnight in teenage twilight.
That time he went to the twilight and he kind of opened his mouth a little bit wider with it. That added a little bit of extra brightness. If we were doing it the way that he did that phrase the first time, it would be in twilight, twilight, which just doesn't sound as stylish, I guess. So there is some use for like using these things that might not be as efficient to just change up the sound and be as expressive as you need to with your voice. So I think he's being really expressive with his voice. I wish that there was more going on with his face, but I don't know. Like, it's fine. It's just kind of deadpan.
Oh, when we met last spring, we had such a pretty thing, a bit like a Polaroid.
Like is another one where he went a little wide on. The rest of it's pretty narrow.
Yours, but you don't care.
A little bit of a encouraged flip right there. On the don't care, she kind of flipped up into her head voice or falsetto, where the part before was more connected, more of a full voice sound.
With the boys in your bed.
Yeah, I just wish they were less deadpan right now. Going on the thing I was talking about opening a little bit wider just to encourage some brightness. When you go to higher notes, you just need a little bit more space, usually, with your vowels. And by that, I mean you need to open your mouth a little bit more. Most people tend to open wide horizontally, which has become a sound that we're very accustomed to. And it is possible to get balance technique with that. The thing is, it's a variant from like that home base. So his home base of speech is kind of all right in this place. And as soon as he goes away from that, we lose that home base. And it probably won't keep going up higher, working the same way. It might, but it might not. So I think it's important to balance, like, am I setting myself up well for the rest of the song by making this action? Or am I wrecking the rest of the song? Because it's so easy to go wide for like one note and then have that note pull, and then we feel a little strained, and then it feels weird for the rest of the song, where if we made a slight vowel adjustment, we wouldn't run into that problem. But it's an important thing to start asking yourself as you're polishing off songs, is like, are all of my vowel choices serving the song, and are they serving my ability to sing the song. And if you answer no to one of those, consider changing them. Yeah, then we get up into like real emo rock range. Goes up to the high, and then he kind of opens wide to make that sound. I think it's great. He didn't seem super tense, but there was a little bit of an extra push, which again results in a more intense sound, which for this style of music, I think kind of works. But again, just to ask yourself that question, like, does that extra little bit of strain prevent me from singing the rest of the song or prevent me from singing the rest of my set? And if that answer is yes, it does prevent me from, we got to change that. Like, that's the whole point of this technique. And so in the moment, I don't think you should be thinking about all of this. But this is why we have videos. This is why we have recordings that we can go listen to of ourselves, and why I suggest making a lot of recordings of yourself. Generally, I say just audio recordings, because then you can just have a quick listen back right after you do something, and you can see if it worked well. But you can start evaluating and using that time to like kind of be intellectual about these things, about, oh, that just didn't work, and I felt really bad right after that note, and the rest of it stopped being fun, so change that note. But in the moment, like, I don't want him to think about that at all. I want him to still be focusing on the emotion. He's got a cool voice. When your bedroom, it was all straight down. He didn't have to go to that wider place. So to me, that shows like, okay, maybe that one right before was a little bit wider to get that brightness, and maybe it did add in a little bit of extra tension or whatever, but it didn't matter because he knew where home was right after. And then he went back into home and it kind of reset his voice. So I bet he'll be able to go repeat that now because he knows where his home is. Yeah, a little bit more intense. I hear just a little bit of throatiness. It's not too much, but that usually comes from the tongue kind of retracting. So if you didn't like that tone, maybe just work on relaxing your tongue, like having a little bit more of a forward presence with the tongue, a little bit more relaxed so it doesn't just start getting a little bit of that sound. I honestly don't mind it though. It's just a different color. So as long as it's repeatable, it's fine. But like all of the things I'm saying with this, repeatability matters, and the ability to like continue doing a full set matters. And all of these little things, they can add up. So for him, maybe in his voice, this is awesome and this feels great, and it probably is. For you, maybe one of those little things will start adding up, and who knows which of them is going to kind of tip you over the edge to where it feels like your larynx is in your ears and you have to just yell everything out and it feels terrible. And that's why just like adjust all of them a little bit and play around until you can find something that does feel good to you and that is super expressive for you. Because usually if you feel really good about your singing and you don't feel like one action is just wrecking you as a singer, you're going to be more expressive and the music's going to be better because you trust your technique a little bit better.
Lie on your bed, lie through your teeth.
Loving you is killing me. Loving you is killing me.
Her voice doesn't have as much vocal cord closure. There's a little bit of extra air getting through. And I think because that's happening, some extra muscles are kind of compensating for the lack of resistance from just the vocal folds. And that's giving her a little bit of a roughness to her voice. Plus you get the roughness of just the extra air moving through. It sounds a little bit more difficult, but again, I really like that sound. Like, I think it sounds cool. She's got a pretty voice.
Lie on your bed and lie to me.
Loving you is killing me. Loving you is killing me.
I also could be wrong about that. Like, she sounds great. I think that tone is awesome. I don't know. Like, I think that if you sang exactly those notes for 4 hours, you wouldn't feel great. Where if we adjusted things a little bit, you might feel better. But she's also not singing like the main part in this. And so I think that you could just come in like she's doing every once in a while in the song and get away with it and be fine with having a little bit of like imperfect technique. And then we are blessed with that really cool tone that we get from it because she gets all of this time to rest, where if you're singing lead vocals, you don't have that time to rest. You don't get to swallow as much. You don't get as many breaks for the vocal folds to just kind of settle down and for the whole body to release some of the stress. And so it becomes even more important to get that technique kind of dialed in. He doesn't look like he has a super tense jaw. I only see some extra jaw tension and maybe tongue tension when he goes to the very top of his range, but the stuff preparing for the top is nice and loose. And you can kind of... It's a weird thing to say, but high notes almost don't matter as much. A lot of times with people, their high notes feel great, or they can push a little on the high notes, and as long as they're approaching the high notes in a good way, they'll get away with it. But if the approach to the high notes starts stacking tension and starts pulling chest voice up a little higher than it needs to, then the high note's gonna be wrecked because you're like, you don't have any release. But he's not stacking that tension. He's getting all of these chances to kind of release some tension so that he can just use the tension for effect. He can like do a weird thing with his jaw that adds a little bit of intensity. He can do something weird with his tongue that just gives an interesting sound. And then he has time to come back to home. He's got an interesting voice. I dig it. That's cool. I think that if he worked on just relaxing his jaw a little bit more at the top of his range, he might be just a little bit more sustainable with what he's doing. But I haven't seen anything to prove like, that's really unsustainable. So, awesome. Like, he sounds really cool. They sound really good together. I like the kind of variation in tones between their voice. First, because like one is more of a treble voice and one is less of a treble voice. That gives a little bit of just difference in sound. The other, because his voice is quite a bit more clear than hers is. She has a little bit more of that rasp going on. It's nice. They sound good together. It sounds like they're listening together. Yeah, the only thing that I would advise is like really just make sure that that jaw tension, if you're feeling any, is not interfering. Because he might have just gotten so used to it that he's doing fine with it, but I think he could recreate those sounds and just relax the jaw a little bit and have it maybe feel a little less stressful internally. But, you know, that's kind of a leap for me because it sounds good. He's recreating it pretty reliably. He's getting a lot of really great technique in between and he's approaching it well. So yeah, Picky Me just says relax a little bit. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, all the things that YouTubers ask you to do. And go check out my website, vocalease.net, to check out my lesson availability. And if I'm full, to book a lesson with another really great teacher, Mark Reynolds. So thank you. Goodbye.